Ou deixa sua bunda ardendo, ou dá tapa, 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 cara.
Welcome to Empowerment Unleashed Now, exploring your inner authority. I'm Michelle Jones.
And I'm Scott Collins.
And this is the place to connect with your highest, most essential self, your most empowered self, where you can explore your inner authority and learn from others and learn more about yourself.
We talk with fascinating people from all walks of life about transformation, healing, hypnosis, astrology, physical experience of being human, and heart-centered living.
We're so thankful that you're here with us. Let's dive right on in. Hi, and welcome to Empowerment Unleashed Now. I'm Michelle Jones. I'm here with
Scott Collins.
and Sensei Christopher Witecki. Thank you so much for being with us. We are humbled to have you and just delighted that we're here. Where are we, Scott? Do you know? Supposedly?
We're in at 0 degree Aquarius, where we are.
I was thinking more like Palm Springs.
Okay. I was worried they'd get on my address. Gotcha.
Yes. No. And so we are at 0, your personal hero,
The big O.
Yeah.
the big O,
They're Aquarius.
0 Aquarius. And what we're going to be talking about today, and I think it's really appropriate, which is authenticity and how that really creates empowerment within people
Okay.
and our unique, we kind of call it our star map, Sensei,
The chart.
the chart.
Yeah.
I find it a reframe because astrology has been, unfortunately, people associate it sometimes with the funny pages, with comics, like it was reduced to something it should never have been reduced to, which tells us there's probably a lot of power in that structure and in that system.
Yeah.
And minimizing it, right, to keep the power or just so we don't have the power. I don't know why people do that with things, right? Why you would remove this. I mean, I say to people sometimes, they'll say like, oh, Michelle, like, what's the podcast about? I'll say, we have about empowerment, kind of how the mind works, hypnotherapy, stuff about food, well-being. And when I say astrology, a lot of, and sometimes it's men in particular, women will immediately say, I don't know anything about it. I always wanted to know. And I'll be like, kind of that face like that. Nah, I don't know about that. And then I say, do you know that our founding fathers in America were astrologists? Like, how else would they have known when to sign the Declaration of Independence? And that's when you get people kind of intrigued and interested. Like, what do you mean our founding fathers were astrologers? So for me and for Scott, I think, I'm going to speak for you for a second, bro. We've become, well, we've always been, I think, professional students, but we've totally nerded out to your creation of the step system. And that's where I would say in the last 36 months in particular of my life, even though I've probably been listening for upwards of 60 months,
Wow.
I started to really apply when I subscribed to Sirius Joy. And what I find is that it gives me not only the collective consciousness, what's going on out in the world, but it's how do I move in my authenticity and in my most empowered state, which comes from the heart? How do I move through the world? And I don't think I was doing this before with such intention.
Yeah.
The step system, I mean, you also, how long have you been listening to Sirius Joy and the step system, Scott?
It's a good question. I mean, you turned me on to it.
So I did. Okay, I thought I did.
I'm wondering.
Like 4 years ago, did I say to you right off the bat, like, brother, you need to do this? I might have. I'm a little bossy, and just like,
Yeah. When did we meet?
4 years. Supposedly it was 4 years ago.
Okay. Yeah. So probably at least 3.
At least 3.
Yeah.
Did you know a lot about astrology beforehand as a polymath person?
So now that I know more, I would consider what I knew then very elementary.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then for you, Christopher, this is like your life's work.
Yeah.
This is like a huge contribution, because when I speak to people about astrology now, and I say to them, oh, do you listen to Sirius Joy? Do you know about like your degrees, like your step, like where are, they're like, what are you talking about, Michelle? Could you tell us what we're talking about, Sensei?
Sure. First of all, the story goes, I discovered them the first time when I first saw on the air for Soul Garden for YouTube and doing all 12 signs 5 days a week. Right. So I started doing video horoscopes. That was my big first,
You were
brain.
the first YouTuber doing video
Yes.
horoscope, right? You were the first astrologer on YouTube.
Totally. There was a guy who was putting clips of his show on the air in Britain, like showing clips. I was the first astrologer next to him. I was the second. He was the only one I could find, but he was really showing clips of his show. I was the first person that went on there and just talked right to the viewer about their astrology. And here's what we want to do. I call it stand-up astrology. I call myself the stand-up astrologer, because the idea was I'd be kind of funny at times. And I did all 12 signs 5 days a week, which was 60 videos a week. I did that for 5 years, that pace. It was a huge pace to get them all done. But, come like 2-3 days of recording. I mean, I actually recorded for 6 weeks every day before I went live, just practicing on how I do it. And I was working in reality TV, so I had an idea of how to present myself, as a director in reality TV. But I'm doing it and like, I'm paying attention to the energy every day, and I'm looking at the planets and, in a day's time, Mercury will move a degree and a half. The moon will move 12 degrees. Those are the fastest moving planets. Venus might change a degree or might, not, like about 1 degree usually.
Yeah.
Mars changes degree every 2 days, right?
Yeah.
And the rest of the planets were basically the same degree. And, Monday's energy might have been calm and Tuesday's is like crazy chaotic and the planets were moving at all. And I asked my guys, I'm like, what am I not seeing here? Well, there's something on the chart because the energy today and the energy tomorrow are so different and nothing's moved, right? So if this is real, what is it? And if you didn't give much time to tell the story.
Yeah.
So my higher self says, look at the number 2. I was like, number 2? What are you talking about? Pardon my French. So I'm looking around, I'm like, 2, what the? And I look at the 2s, I look at the degrees suddenly, and I notice, oh my God, everything is starting with a 2 on the degrees. What is that? That was the breakthrough right there. And then I had another, oh my God, moment because I had been guided to a Linda Goodman book maybe 2 weeks earlier. Just like, I haven't opened this in a long time. I think it's, I can't remember which book title is, but it's one of her main books. And I opened straight to the page that day of her talking about each planet having a number. And she cracked the code. So I had just been led to the book, intuitively. And I'm like, oh my God, is it possible? That the degrees are tied to this, number that Linda came up with as she found the association. And so I started playing with it, right? And I was like, went back to the book because I didn't quite remember everything. And so I give Linda credit for cracking that code. Although I think she cracked 0, but I went off on a limb, to make Earth number 10 and Chiron number 11.
Yeah.
And realized that there were those. I think she got Pluto at 0. She did that, which is brilliant. I was like, that's brilliant,
Yeah.
Pluto 0, just absolutely brilliant, and so from there I started applying, looking at it and I thought, okay, so 2 is emotional, where's the moon that day? I can't remember where it was. I was like, oh, no wonder,
Yeah.
if this is, the number is 2, everything is 2, there's a lot of moon stuff going on today. So I started playing with it on the air and in readings, and it was 5 years before I told anyone what it was, I've just researched, daily.
You didn't know.
Right. I mean, I need to, make,
Yeah.
declaration like that without knowing. And then I started to say, the ruling planet of the day,
Mhm.
is this.
Yeah.
And people are like writing in all the time. How do you come up with that? And I'm not talking, I didn't talk about it. So long story short, it just started downloading. But then there was a moment when, I can't remember when it was, but maybe a year into it or something, where I was waking up, you wake up from that sleep state, that half dream sleep state where you're waking up.
Yeah.
And I was getting like a slideshow from Spirit, which was like, yellow is 2. Yellow is 2. And I was just like, what is that? And I was telling my roommate, I'm like, I'm getting weird downloads about colors and numbers and, and it felt kind of compacted. And then there was another day where I sitting on the chair, there's a friend witnessing. And I'm like, I'm getting some sort of download right now. Like, it wasn't a download. Like, it was like my head was just filling with density. And I'm like, I think I'm going to get a download. I think I'm going to get an equation. I have to go write down an equation. And I just let myself to the table and I wrote down an equation, which I've never released to the public yet. A secret equation.
Yeah.
Actually, the secret of Sirius Joy, an equation, a numerological equation. And that at that point, I was like, okay, I really need to flush this out. Really, this is bigger than I realized. So, I'm just applying it in charts, in readings. So basically what it is that it's the final, how do I put this? The step number is based on the degree of the planet, right? So, and you might wonder, well, how does this work? Well, it has to do with collective consciousness. So if the collective conscious all agrees that this is a 0, then it manifests everywhere as a 0, right? And I realized that it doesn't matter where you turn the map and what you call 0, as long as the collective conscious agrees, this is 0, this is 1, this is 2. And what happens is the collective agrees with that number, then all the principles of that state of awareness manifest along that particular number. And it applies to everything. Yeah.
Yeah. 0 is the anchor.
It is the foundation. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then more and more downloaded. And there was a day where I prayed to spirit, like, well, if there's all these numbers and stuff, well, then there must be some algorithm to manifestation. Give me the algorithm. Like, what's the secret code? And spirit jumps in right away and goes 0, 1, 2, 3. And I was like, oh my God, it's literally 0 through 11. That's the code to manifest. And so that was a big breakthrough too. And I started applying it and I did a series of tests of manifesting stuff. And the biggest one, they tell the story, and it's a longer story, so I'll wait for it. I don't know if we're going to tell today, but basically I applied the steps according to what I was intuiting and being told, which is that if you populate your consciousness with an intention in each of the steps that are aligned to the same outcome, you will receive that outcome after step 11, right? So I tried it with a house, basically, and I need to manifest a house because my guides had said, I'd ask my guides, like, where's my girl? And my guides are like, you'll get the girl when you get the dog. I'm like, the dog? I don't need a house to get the dog. I'm in an apartment and, I have to get a house to get the dog to get the girl. So anyways, I need to manifest a house. I have bad credit. It had gone bad in my divorce. So the chances in LA of renting a house, was just slim. Long story short, my guides led me to it. And the woman who had the house happened to be the mother of like my current executive producer's line producer. And she's like, do you know Eddie? And I'm like, short, gay Jewish guy? And she's like, yes, that's him. You've got the house. So I was like, oh my God. I just, she didn't even check my credit, nothing. Nothing. She was that was good enough for her. And I was like, wow, okay, this works. And so that was how it all came to life, really. And then other things came to life too, like the addition and the subtraction. There's actual math applies, and it gives you the formula of how consciousness builds.
Yeah. It feels like as those steps and you're including them in that manifestation, you're raising your frequency each one. It's a number. It's a straight up frequency.
That builds on the prior.
But
it's also fascinating. It's like,
And that's one of the things, like that someone with a degree in theoretical physics and math and like has background in that, about what you brought to astrology, to me, that was way different and clicked in a way that nothing really had prior. And also as a musician, and I don't know if you know this, but in Nashville, it's called the number system. That's how the players play. They don't play like classically.
Exactly.
And it was a ruffian style of learning music, kind of like they did in Egypt, where it's more by ear and you can apply numbers to any key and you don't have to learn in the key. So when I see your number system, I actually don't only see colors and numbers, I see tones.
Yeah.
So, or I feel tones. Yeah, I feel like planets are emitting tones in addition to that color.
Yes.
And then it allowed a way to be applicable in your daily life on a whole nother level of awareness. Like when the numbers are moving every day. And yes, I feel them, like we were talking about earlier. Like you can feel those shifts. so just like deep
Wow.
Thank you.
to your download and like its ability to be applicable in a daily life and raise your frequency. And that's what we're here to do, right? That's what empowerment
That's what
comes from. Raise your frequency, and you attract.
exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the precision is just outstanding.
Yeah.
The precision just blows you away. And astrology,
Yes.
I always had an issue with astrology because in the old days, well, first of all, astrology, when I learned it was you're screwed. Like certain trends and things like, you're screwed or you're not screwed. There wasn't even an option for how do I fix this? Like I would read the old astrology books. I'm like, this is depressing. So first of all, just the idea that it can manifest either way. But then, so I practice an astrologer. It can manifest this way, it can manifest that way. But how do you determine which way it's going to manifest? Like I gave the client both options, let them choose which way it would manifest. I didn't come to a specific, probably this, With the step system, it carries it out to the absolute, like it's going to go this way. It'll always go this way. And that comes from the net step number or the ruling step, what ends up to be the ruling step. That at the end of the day, this part of you is going to make it happen. And to me, it solves like the last 6 feet of interpretation that astrologers, struggle over.
Something that I tried to explain to some friends, right, that I'm here with in Palm Springs, and they were like, "Oh God, are you going to talk about all that number stuff?" And they're all women that I'm here with, and so they felt like a little bit stressed by it. And I said, "Okay, so wait, let's just do something just really simple that I know you're going to know the answer." I said, when you go out in the sun and you feel that sunshine on your face and you feel the vibe of the sun, right? It gives you a feeling.
Yeah.
We're like, yes. I said, okay, then when you go outside and you're in the moonlight and you're in the full moon, it gives you a vibe. And they were like, okay, we're following, we're tracking. And I said, well, every planet has that.
Or if you sit in a sound bath, after all those tones and those bowls, like that's what I feel the planets are doing, moving around, tuning us.
Ultimately, it is an attunement. And that was what we were talking about. And they were like, oh my God, I'm starting to get this. Like I started to get like a little excited.
Yeah.
Because I feel like the removal of us from anything that is galactic or anything that is like off this earth, like we're in a huge Aquarius transit. Like we better start like waking up to this.
Yeah.
Right? That there's other things that are affecting what it is, the vibe.
Oh, totally. And I'm grateful to have you and you be able to share this because I think it is something that could be very valuable in helping people. I have this thing called, so as you know, I'm a big Bruce Lee fan and Bruce Lee created his own brand of, it's called Junkito. And he took several of the classic martial arts and created his own by combining them. There was something customized to him that like was not boxed by antiquated systems, but like embraced what they did offer. So I've created a thing called the martial arts, where like you create your own martial art bag of knowledge, wisdom, anything that resonates with you. It can be pertaining to exercise or plants or books or meditation or whatever, but you don't have to adhere to any other classicism of schools of thought or teaching.
Right.
And I really think your astrology system is outside of those antiquated things. It's very future and modern, but also it's something that can be embraced and then implemented into a life on a day-to-day basis and be a part of somebody's martial art bag and help them elevate from a white belt to a black belt.
Oh yeah. We have a channel on our Sirius Joy network, which is Krista Marie Miller, and she channels Mary Magdalene. And first of all, you have to see it to believe it or hear it to believe it. But when I had a chance to talk to her, she explained to me that the step system is the basis and bridge between all modalities, which gave me goosebumps. I couldn't believe that. But she said, you understand the steps and what was trusted to me. I mean, I later learned that I was entrusted with it, like I was chosen to be the one that brings it back down, or, I don't know if it was a race in history. And that this system of how consciousness builds on consciousness and layers is the fundament of all sorts of things. So, we're exploring what the bridges are. In other words, if you know the steps, then you will have an insight into all the modalities, because it's really sort of the law of incarnation. I call it the architecture of incarnation. It is the architecture of how we incarnate consciously, but it's also, I think, the map of consciousness. You know, I remember when I learned astrology just by itself, I happened to be taking a lot of psychology courses in college at the time. And so, you know, I'm reading Freud and all these different Carl Jung and these types of things. And I'm like, these guys don't really get it. I'm not getting a full picture of how this all works. Then I learned astrology. I learned about astrology right at the same time. So it's introduced to me out of the blue. You know, I knew about it, but like it was introduced to me on this level of the charts at the same time. And I was like, oh my God, we don't know anything about human consciousness. Like, because it tells all sorts of answers to things we never considered, you know, but it's based on principle. So I think science rejects it because it rejects science. You know, like, you know, as soon as you say yes to that, you're saying no to a whole bunch of stuff. And so it's been pushed away. And, you know, I get the sense in newspapers, you know, Jean Dixon turned in pages for each sign, like a whole page, like one page, when she sold horoscopes to the, you know, syndication in the 50s, you know, she was the big one, the one that Warren JFK don't go to, you know, to Dallas. And they cut it down to a paragraph. So it was authentically this long explanation. They made it a joke, the editors of newspapers. And I think it's just because, you know, these crazy things that chicks believe kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know, I kind of get the feeling just how it turned out that way.
The dark ages. There's a lot of behind it.
Dark ages, spiritual dark ages. What do you?
Because if we go way back, that's not how it was.
No,
The way the Egyptians viewed it, it's not the way.
No.
Yeah.
well, that's exactly what I was going to ask you, Christopher, is what do you perceive the shift in that was in terms of the collective consciousness that this was revered in the time of Egypt, like numerically connected to astronomy and
I think actually what snuffed it out was the Pope. Like, from what I understand, the Christian Church and Vatican really worked to, you know, squash anything that would undermine, you know, and if you go into churches, there's astrology stuff everywhere, right? But the organized religion of Christianity, I think, killed it and put it underground, you know, but I think they secretly used it. And, you know, right now, for instance, you know, there's different house systems we use, you know, and, you know, one of them, you know, I've heard rumor that it was deliberately chosen, the official astrology house system, to throw off astrologers, you know, in the public, so that they would have misreads. And that's the Placidus system. So Placidus is non-applicable to most charts. It's designed, what's the word? It came from Arabian astrology based on their region of the earth to have more accuracy, being so far south of the equator. And the Pope was like, this is the official. And so I think Placidus is off personally, which by the way is the default in most software. It's Placidus. You know, so it's like, even now it's still kind of it's corrupted. Placidus isn't completely incorrect. I have a theory about it as far as how it works. But the point is like, I think the church did it and put it underground. And then as modern times came, you know, what do those idiots know about? I mean, we have kind of an attitude, like, what, you know, but, you know, we were smart in the ancient worlds, and the knowledge was carried from Atlantis. In fact, in Atlantis, I was an astrologer. Even then, like I've had readings and everything else that I was doing it back then and calculating and seeing Atlantis' destruction coming, you know, too, and warning people, and people weren't listening. So it's part of it.
so there's obviously a conscious shift that's happening on the planet, right? We had another astrologer on, somebody who's local to us in Nashville, Tom Parsons. He's in his 70s now. You know, like I had shared last year at about this time when I was going on a similar girls trip that we do once a year about this time, my cousin, who's an Aquarian, literally picks me up at the airport. We've known each other our entire lives. He's 2 years younger than I am. And we're driving back, and Mark said, and he's a night owl, I'm not. We get to my hotel. He goes, all right, sis, I got to ask you something. He's like, what's up with this whole Aquarius thing? He goes, I didn't even realize I was like a water sign. And I was like, okay, Mark, you're not a water sign. It's actually an air sign. He wanted to know.
Oh, okay, yeah.
He legitimately was asking.
Yeah,
Recently, it was a year ago. He said, I've never cared. And it was like just as Pluto was starting to enter into Aquarius, He goes, I'm thinking of going to a psychic. What do you think of this person? His wife asked me, like, also, she was like, Michelle, did you tell me a little bit about this? And I was like, I was so excited because there was a shift.
Big one.
These are generationally people that have never spoken to me, but they've never asked me about like spirituality, how I feel about things like, they would just say, you're just the unicorn of the family, Michelle. Like you're just it. Like they accepted my authenticity, but I feel like people are starting to look now as a form of empowerment back to themselves and seeing these star maps as like, what does this say about me? It's like a recognition of higher self and soul self.
Yes.
So what do you attribute this, Christopher, that this resurgence, is this a Pluto in Aquarius, like resurgence?
Yes. Two things. I mean, I think, I feel also that Pluto in Capricorn, which is 15 years long, that just wrapped up, was, the breaking down of authority.
Yes.
Okay. So that really led to it.
Yes.
And I think people, conspiracy theories, 9/11, all this stuff, these are all aspects of, the public going, well, we've been told may not be what is, right? So there was skepticism there. I also think the breakdown of religion, and organized religion, and that it's no longer the source of truth, so there's a breakdown of authority. We disrespect the authority of knowledge. That was phase one.
Yeah, those are pretty big fear-inducing mechanisms.
Totally.
Too. So those are not easy to break down. Thank God Pluto was there.
Oh yeah, I mean, a lot of time it was December 6th
to break it down.
Oh yeah. The only thing it has, I mean, it is the, Capricorn is the ultimate power, ruled by Saturn, which is where we get Satan. The word Satan. So it's like a part of humankind that power always seeks more power and backs up that power. So it takes a wrecking ball like Pluto, a tiny little digital planet, like way in the end, and it is a planet.
Pluto is.
Which I even think the
Pluto gets so gripped off.
I think there's a lot of science against astrology that goes out there. Like one is the Ophiuchus myth that it's a 13th astrology sign. That was released by some guy in a planetarium in like Ohio or something, who just was like, this is a 13th sign and completely full of it, and then the media picks it up and goes wide with it. And it's like, to debunk astrology, because I think they saw the threat of, these outside systems. Because if you get a good reading, you're convinced. I mean, the thing about it is it's so accurate that, they have to hide it and debunk it. Who knows what powers those are that doesn't want it, but
When you speak with someone who is an authentic astrologer, who's the real deal, I'm going to tell you this, as somebody who's been through, so I grew up in a family, listeners have heard me say this, mom, religious, dad, spiritual. So like I was reading Ram Dass books when I was 7, and my mom was saying, what are you reading those devil books for? Right? This is just like this back and forth, which for me as a Gemini rising, it didn't freak me out that much. I was like, all right, there's two sides to everything. Started therapy when I was 12 for my mom's illness. Like dad invited me into that space. Like, hey, would you like to see someone? He's like human-centered. He's like a person-centered psychologist. And I was like, absolutely. I'd love to talk to somebody about this world, this universe, right? So in fact, Dad and I were just speaking about this week, about how like therapeutically you learn about yourself. I'm going to tell you what, until I sat down and of course, like you're ready and the teacher appears. I feel like I did not know myself.
Oh yeah.
Until I understood the step system. And until I sat with Christopher and until I sat with like Tom, because of, I guess, the wounds and even the ones that are healed, which karmically we are now, right?
Yeah.
I still had, and I say this as a hypnotherapist, limiting beliefs about what I was able to attain or not attain.
Yeah.
Yeah, it unlocks self-compassion in a way that is like really only psychedelics can do, or like deep hypnosis or meditation.
Right.
Like, because it's a deeper compassion you can experience when you see it.
Yes.
And then you reflect on, oh, that happened in my Saturn return, or that and when it's a posthumous thing, you have compassion for what you experience. And then you have a level of belief, a new belief system going forward, and then you're equipped.
Yeah.
Then then your martial art is like
Yes.
advancing. Yeah.
Because
No, it's profound.
it's a profound, like, okay, so we wanted to do this podcast, right? Like we both felt like we should give an offering, like back to the world, like to say thanks. Well, then I sat with you, I sit with Tom. They're like, okay, yeah, that's great. But you need to be doing it this way. Like it doesn't need to just be an offering. Like this is a business. Like you're doing this because you're and showing why you can do it. I'm going to tell you, I don't feel like I had limitless possibilities until I understood my chart, my star map. And I understand it was be anything you want when you grow up, and people would be like, wow, you did this really well. You did that really well. I don't think I had the perspective from my soul, the soul perspective on who I was. And what did I sign back up for? Like, how come I reincarnated here right now again? And that conscious awareness of conscious awareness, it shifts how you can direct your days, your minutes, your hours. I get the messages and I understand I'm really pushing the service, but it's because it works.
Yeah, and it can trigger remembrance. I mean, really, that's all we're ever doing, right? Is just remembering our power, remembering our other lives, remembering our crystalline DNA and pineal glands, and we're remembering. It's all here, always has been. And you see that map, and then you can remember those expansive other timelines that you've had.
Yes.
And see them.
And I think it takes at least like 12 months to 24 months because of the depth of your service for Sirius Joy.
Yes.
Like, I'll be honest, Christopher, and this Scott's probably like, oh God, don't do these questions and these things right now, Michelle. But I would love the rock and gospel. I think it's not what it's called, that our calls the rock and roll gospel. I love, like, so because I download songs, like I feel like I get channeled songs. So I loved it. And I would look at the color of the day. And then I would look at, okay, where was I in relation to the collective? So just like, okay, if we're at step 21, okay, I'm at step 6. And I just wanted to see where I fit in. That was really all I could handle initially. And I I felt like I mastered that. And I would always listen to the daily pep talk.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that was part of, and like structures and systems, you and I talk about this, Mr. Capricorn, of empowerment. It's how I begin my day. Like if I don't begin my day with Sirius Joy, I think once, bro, you probably remember this, we were going through transits and it had flipped to where it was all like in the evening. It's like when you're going surfing and then all of a sudden you're like, wait a second, why did the tides get all messed up? Like now I have to let it surf. Like,
Doing that now.
it's doing that now. It's doing that now.
The step number moving, is that what you mean?
Right.
Yes.
And the
way
It looks
around,
like
yeah.
Time of day.
It's always moving. It'll stop for a second and stay at that, and then it'll go. So what it does is it moves like from 11 a.m. to to 6, and then it'll swing back from 6 to 11. So we're always chasing after it, and finding it to the exact minute and mapping it out. So because it's moving, our system is designed to serve you the step that's active now. So you log in, you're in the step right now.
You're in real time.
It's real time reporting. So the problem is like, right now it's changing at 2 in the afternoon, somewhere around that. So what'll happen is that, the step you wake up to is your ruling step of the day.
Yes.
So, and it's the one you wake up to, because when you wake up, there's some sort of acceptance of the program. There's something you accept, right? There's one of the reasons why sleep deprivation is really weird, because you don't sleep, steps are going by, you're never accepting, you're skipping steps. You're not integrating those step numbers. And I think it's probably why people go a little nuts, because they're not logging in the system and getting today's download. But then the step will change in the day. You still have the same ruling step you woke up to, right?
Right.
But then the step changes, which applies on top of that step. So now you have energies kind of competing. One thing we deal with is like East Coast. When it's changing, East Coast will be wake up to one step. Pacific Coast wakes up to another step, a different step.
Yes.
That's also an interesting phenomenon.
Another phenomenon that's intriguing.
And people wake up at 4 a.m. because that's their thing. they will have that too. They will wake up to the yesterday's step for everyone else. So some people are operating on different steps at the same time because then their consciousness is in that program. It's interesting.
So one of the more disempowering things I think that people can experience energetically is like they feel disconnected from what it is that's like going on around them.
Yep.
Right? They feel disconnected. And I feel like the step system in Sirius Joy has helped to where I always feel, and even if I consciously want to unplug from some of the collective, I feel like I know energetically my thresholds, if you will, and like what I can do and maybe what I should maybe wait a minute, maybe wait 2 hours. It's like, I think that sometimes we've become such an action-oriented, especially post-COVID, right? We all felt like we were all like chained up. And now we're just like, we want to run out there. I don't know that we're doing this with intention. And for me, it's given form to my manifestation through intention. And that level of empowerment, I don't know if many people are operating with that system, but to know that it's available to them.
Yeah. But the ruling step number, so the ruling state of awareness, I mean, what people don't realize is the 12 states of awareness are the 12 signs, and they're not what, what typical horoscopes make you think, personality types. They're not archetypes. They turn into archetypes, but what they are, their essence is the 12 ways you are aware of reality, of 12 awarenesses. You're aware of your ego, Aries. You're aware of your feelings, Cancer. You're aware of your thoughts, Gemini. These are all the 12 states of awareness. Now, when you have a ruling step number, it tells you what the ruling state of awareness is of the day. So today on this recording day, ruling state of awareness is I protect, which is Scorpio, which means that we are made more aware of our boundaries today when it's active than we normally are. And it rotates, but not necessarily, always in form. This is the only day where it's only boundaries, the first day of a season, right? That's it. You have then compounds like step 10, which brings the heart and protection together. But 0 is the only day where protection is the only thing, right?
Yeah.
And you'll notice on step 0 day, people will become vulnerable or shut down because the two expressions of I protect is door closed, door open.
Yeah.
Right. So 0 is one of those days.
This is like after the big O, after a climax, you're very vulnerable.
Oh yeah.
And you're like that's what I feel like it's the entire sensual experience of 29 days. And then like the climax, and then you're just like, you're very vulnerable. And that's,
or you shut down.
or you shut down.
Now there's something rushing.
It can feel glorious too. I like step 0, but it is a very raw skin shed.
And it's bipolar. Scorpio is bipolar.
Yeah.
It's bipolar. Step 0 is bipolar. It is extreme. And and it's the boundary. So it's telling you the boundary of reality. Boundaries of reality is dual system, dual opposing system. So, 0, Pluto is the planet that guards the solar system.
Yeah.
To get through Pluto, to get to the sun or get to Earth, it guards the solar system. It defines the boundaries of everything. And that's one of the states of awareness.
Yeah.
Is that there is one state of awareness that is nothing but divide, create the line, which is interesting because that and Aries or I am, which is ego, 0 and 9 are the only two that only are experienced on Earth. All the other states of awareness follow you through into the afterlife because they're expressions of. They're available to a soul not in a body. So we only learn separation here. We only learn ego and fighting and action here. So those are the dumbest states of awareness where human beings are literally not educated. They have no past life intuition about them much. It's interesting to see that.
Yeah. Wow. And, I guess that map to awareness, and awareness is the portal with which we can access neutrality, right? That's like once awareness sets in, and we can have every experience in a way that we can just respond. Like when we have an awareness that we can have gratitude for every single thing we ever experience. We can see it as a guru, as a teacher. We can eliminate right or wrong, good and bad. We can be neutral. So that alone, a way to access awareness, the 12 states. It is like, I just want to share that too. This is why that alone is reason to look into what we're talking about tonight.
Yeah. And the more powerful you are. So your manifestations will, the speed of your manifestations, so I believe that the way the matrix is wired is what you be is what comes. So that's what becoming is. And so you have to be a certain, vibration to call in an equal vibration. It's all based on vibrational signature. So you have to be aware of these states and where they are. And then you have to be aware to direct them to an outcome, so it's essential.
It is so essential. And I think that that's really a component that a lot of folks out there are seeking in a myriad of different ways, sometimes therapeutically, psychologically. And I think that looking at this for those listeners that have never explored this before, I would be so intrigued, like for folks just to go to something like a Sirius Joy. Do you guys still have a special, Christopher, that like for 1 month, is it?
Oh, yeah, it is. $3.99 for the first month. And there's, the full price, $4.
So coffee for $4.
Yeah, we're cheaper
right?
than coffee. Yeah.
Like cheaper than coffee for a month?
Yeah, to try it out and see for yourself. The messages will scare the hell out of you because of how accurate they are, probably within two weeks. I mean, you'll finally sort of kind of ease up. I think people are very defensive about, is this real, especially skeptics. And so you have to sort of relax, and be willing to actually soak in the message. The messages are very fun. We get, 7 messages a day via text message or email that basically give you the architecture of that day. And the crazy thing is everyone goes through that architecture on that day. Everyone, right? It's just applied differently or comes up somewhere else in your life. So we all are at step 0, right?
That's a good point that you brought up, because I think for a lot of listeners, the difference between their natal and then what's going on that day's chart and how it interacts works with one another. So like just a from the hip coffee table advisory, what could you share to a listener of like how they can understand that?
So, I mean, you're talking about natal versus...
How like on your day-to-day basis, like your chart can...
Got you. So what you're speaking to is like your birth chart.
Yes.
Your birth chart is a map of your soul and the way your soul's root intentions. So the soul comes down with these intentions, which means that it wants to go this direction and wants to learn this. And so it's going to pull you in that direction all the time. You might fight that direction, but this is where it wants to go. And that's part of the accuracy of the system is like, you want to do this, come to that step. But there's also source energy. So what I learned is that there's really 2 charts that are happening at any moment. There's source energy charts. So it's coming in from the sun. The photons from the sun, I think, are the energy. And the sun is juxtaposed 0 degrees Aquarius today. Now, 0 degrees Aquarius is just putting us in a map, of the zodiac. The constellation itself is just a marker. It's really the 100 million stars behind it that are sending photons. They started 1 billion years sending those photons. The sun is then colorizing those photons, our system energy, and those photons are hitting us. So that's as much as we know about astrology. So everyone on the earth gets hit with 0 degree Aquarius, everyone, right? So everyone is being called. You have to told that the root intention of Earth today is to 0 boundaries around frequency with yourself, 0 boundaries around frequency. So that is everyone. That's why everyone is under the same weather pattern everywhere. Now, then it comes down to, and you have to all respond to that global first. Then there is the natal, which is the tickle spot in your life, the way you are wired. Now, if source energy comes this way, it's going to tickle you here, tickle you there.
Yes.
And so it hits you on your multi-lifetime story. It hits you on your uniqueness of who you are. So you're affected as a Taurus. All Tauruses are affected over here. And then you are affected personally at this deeper, more complex level. And I'm the only astrologer, I think, that I've ever met, other than others I've trained, that looks at the 2.
I think so.
I still do the sun sign stuff.
Yes.
Everyone's like, well, tell me about my natal. Well, natal is kind of hard to interpret because it's where it eventually manifests. It may not manifest today.
Not today.
You may keep it in the source and be like, and wait a week before you actually make it manifest. You may see the signs of your natal chart impression. And for some time, it takes some time to get some distance to go, oh yeah, it is affecting my marriages. Yeah. And so, but the source and the sign, it affects immediately. Right. So you see it that day, usually in some form.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That is so crazy to think about and so like profound at the same time. But I think that's true, is that no one else is giving you both.
I don't see it. And really, honestly, it's like over the evolution of astrology, it was like natal chart, natal chart, natal chart. Well, the truth is not for predictions, so it's the sun. It goes back to Gene Dixon. I mean, give me credit. Let's like, we are affected today by Aquarius and that means the Aquarius's ego is affected and Pisces faith is affected and, and so on and so forth. And that's where they're drawing their boundaries. Taurus career. I mean, here I am, podcast.
Yes.
You're like, and what's interesting, this is my career trends as a Taurus. And my intention is to do a lot of guest spots this year. So here on the 0 degree, I'm doing a podcast, and it's my intention already for my career. And here I am building the foundation of that right now with you. So it's uncanny. I'm always amazed too, because I record these sometimes way ahead. Then I get to the day, I'm like, holy shit, like here I am doing the examples. It wasn't planned. I find myself exactly where I predicted. It's really, you just can't make it up.
And I find it's wild too, what we sometimes think we want to manifest, and Michelle and I talk about this a lot. And it's like, but don't limit ourselves with that.
Right.
Because source might bring it in a wider, better, bigger, different way than you ever could imagine. And you have an experience right around that cusp of it. And it's not what you think, but then a day or two later, you reflect and it was so much more massive than what you had even thought.
That's because the mind is stupid.
Yeah.
It's a dumb state of awareness.
Cannot limit yourself.
The mind only knows what it's seen before. So, you're basing that on, you're basing the way you think it will turn out is based on only what you've seen and studied and experienced before. The mind only has a catalog of what you know and have experienced. And so a lot of times it's way beyond what the mind has seen, which is why I say the good or gooder principle. It's like, God, this will be good, but I'll take gooder. I use the word gooder because there's no psychological
attachment
to that. I already made it up, so.
Totally.
Love it. It's a beautiful way of saying limitless, basically.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, exactly.
Which
without the definition of limitless and everything you know about limitless applying. Like,
right.
You need to have words that have no meaning.
Limitless.
Yeah, it is what it is. It's indescribable.
That's exactly.
I do that a lot, making up words because people bring to the manifestation every understanding of the word they know, and so it all gets mixed in to the manifestation. So really should just be focus on the core intention of what your heart wants, and let God draw it up. I mean, that's part of the fun.
Yes.
It's that it's always more. That house I manifested. Okay, I was also doing like vision boards and things I wanted, but the house brought so many things I didn't even know I wanted that I wanted. In that particular instance, I was like, oh my God, it's got this. I didn't think to put that on my list. But I love this. I love that. And so it knows you, the universe knows you much better than you.
Yes.
And so you have to give it some freedom. And really, the mind is a limiter, right? The mind, picks up a word at a time, constructs it. It is a low, low capacity part of our awareness. It's designed to be like, tweezers, pick up little things, and to get specific.
Yeah.
So the mind is a limiter, not an expander.
Yeah.
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 Thanks for joining us on this episode of Empowerment Unleashed Now. Please subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform and let us know how this helped you.
Join us right here every week for another episode.